Good evening, everyone, and we will be starting our 6 p.m. Study session in which we will go over the development code. All right. And thank you all for coming and Happy New Year. And thank you for your continued service on the North Augusta Planning Commission. All right, Mr. Paradise,
Yes, ma'am.
you want to kick us off?
Yes, ma'am. The back in 2020, there was a development code revision contract let to update the North Augusta Development Code. The process, and this was before Tommy, they did an audit. The consultants did of the public with the public and got input from the public on and staff of what were the issues with the current code, and from those comments was the guidelines on how to fix it. And those are the things that was really looked at being corrected in this code. We're not going to be able to really get everything fixed. There's probably going to be some, if you want to go down some side roads like clear cutting is not addressed in here. If that's something that the Planning Commission wanted to take up, that would be a whole ball kind of over here that's not included in this project. So don't think that we've got to put everything in here, because a recommendation from the Planning Commission, 2 readings of City Council, and this book gets changed and something can be added to it or something can be deleted from it. But we want to get this as good as we can the first time through. Now, as I said in my email, I had a developer tell me one time that when you do this, this is the real planning, because that's the rules that we go by. And so, we've had some times whenever we really didn't want, you may not have wanted to approve a project, but it met the book. And so this is the time that we may be able to address some of those issues. I have gone back through, the steering committee went through, and comments were made and corrections was made in the book. At the dais, you have a list of out of a page, and these are the different sections that me going through the book thought that there might be an area that the Planning Commission needs to discuss and decide which way you want to fall on it, or somewhere that I didn't really think that the consultant fixed what we were talking about from the steering committee. And what I'd like to do is, you've all, and like Mr. Bigger said, he hadn't memorized it, but you've had an opportunity for several weeks to review the draft. What I'd like to do, if it's all right with you, Dr. Crawford, is just go chapter by chapter, and we'll go through the book, and, chapter by chapter with comments. And some chapters we may have a lot of comments on, some we may have none, but we take care of the whole book that way in an orderly fashion. So if you don't have any objections there, on chapter 1.
What's the timeline for getting through this tonight, or do we have multiple sessions to get through this book?
Well, that depends upon the Planning Commission's endurance.
Okay.
It took the steering committee 3 meetings. I'm hoping we may do a little bit better than that, but if we don't get finished tonight, and what I'm thinking is tonight we will have the work session, then we'll have the meeting, then we'll come back into a work session, so we can get as much done. No disrespect intended, but while y'all are here, I can get as much from you as I can. And then, if we haven't completed it yet, we can, if the planning commission would like, we can schedule another meeting prior to the next meeting and go through as many meetings as we need to like that, so that we're not going month to month to month. You know, we could do it, you know, once a week, twice a week, depending on schedules. The other thing is, this is the draft that you have here is a working draft. So it may be different, significantly different, but may be different than what actually comes to you that you're considering to send up to City Council. When you get a document that you feel comfortable with, then I'd like to schedule the public hearing, and y'all can get public input, and then vote on it, make any changes you want, vote on it, make the recommendation to City Council. Does that answer, kind of tell you?
Well, and just to add a little more context, it was 3 meetings, but it was probably 9 hours in total. Yeah, so it was not. Just to give some context, and right now we're on there, so if we're quiet, it's primarily because we've been through this one time, and so hopefully you all will catch some things that we did not. Thirdly, let me also just acknowledge, I have caregiver issues, so I've got to leave after we come out of the regular session, so may not stay as we continue through the review process the entire time.
Who else was on the planning group that helped get us to here?
Well,
There was, and Tara Carroll was an ex officio member. Rachel, assistant city administrator, Tom Zeezer, and me. We were ex officio members. And from council, we had Mr. McGee and Mr. Toole. And then there was, I can't think of her name, from the public as well. Elizabeth.
and
Yeah,
then,
Elizabeth Pearson.
and the larger group originally that was meeting, I guess before we even got to this draft of it, also included Eddie Butler, I think. There are a couple other folks from the community
There was.
that participated before it even. So there were, there was a larger group that worked with the contractors before, as well as held the contractors had the public kind of listening session to get public feedback. And I actually think most of the feedback was not really around code as much as it was just understanding. I think some of the processes for the city, I think would be the best way to describe it.
But I think COVID did kind of sideways the project, because when you can get together in the same room and talk about it, you have a better discussion than on the video conference.
Yeah, no.
We ready? Do we have any comments from chapter 1?
This was just a general, we talked about this in the initial one, but Article 1, and then it's in this chapter. Do you recall this conversation? When you're looking at the table of contents, it's Article 1 introductory, and it's in this chapter, it's just a clerical.
Gotcha. Yeah, that should say in this article, shouldn't it? Anything else in chapter 1? And what I want to do is try to keep it kind of chronological as we go through the book. And if nothing else on number 1, what do we have on number 2? Are we good? Let's go to 3, nonconformities. The nonconformities, I believe, relax some of the current nonconformities. Anything? We good there?
Tried to reread it.
Well, that's 361. Increase in nonconformity prohibited. I'm looking at 3.5.3. Nonconforming use shall not be changed to any other use unless in compliance with this article. Once a nonconforming use is changed to a conforming use, a nonconforming use shall not be reestablished. I think I get that now. I was reading that a different way. All right. No action shall be taken which increases the degree or extent of the nonconformity. Any enlargement, extension, alteration, parking change, but not limited to lot design, buildings, sign, and access, shall conform to all current regulations of these regulations, requirements of these regulations, unless explicitly exempted within these regulations. Basically, if you're going to expand the non-conforming use or non-conforming feature, which is your design elements like parking, landscaping, those type things, then whatever that addition is going to have to meet the current day standards.
What about the existing?
It's just talking about the extension. The new.
So if there was a fire, the pieces that weren't harmed by the fire could stay, and then the pieces that were that you have to build as new would have to be conforming. Is that basically?
Well, no, that damage by fire is in another.
That was under the historic.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, but because if it's a non-historic building, right? If it's just an older,
Well,
isn't that what that's?
and I wasn't thinking about fire, but you're probably correct. The, I think about if you want to add on,
Side setbacks, front setbacks, back setbacks, your building is in non-conforming, but it's grandfathered in, and if you wanted to do an extension, it would have to have the proper setbacks.
correct. Correct. And the parking that goes there would have to meet the current required parking, landscaping and all of that.
Would
Unless
we
they
be
s-
able to, say it's worthy of, a variance or,
Right.
so they would have to come to us, not
They would come to the BZA.
Yeah.
BZA? Okay. That's like these large houses up here with the parking already set, and then they wanted to enhance it.
Any changes we need to make in the non-conforming sections?
Yeah, but that would, but, so even though that's a typical use, it would cover a non-historic building that had any of the, natural disaster, fire, any of that kind of stuff that they've kind of given a buy for historic.
Yeah,
That-
I see yeah, I see what you're saying. Now, here's the one that confuses me a little bit. 3.4.1.2. When we talk about the reconstruction, a non-conforming structure shall not be rebuilt, altered, or repaired following the accidental damage except in conformity with these regulations after sustaining damages or necessitating repair, provided that any permit, any reconstruction shall begin within 6 months at the same, from the time of damage and notice of wear, and shall be completed within 12 months of the issuance of a building permit. And when I read that, I think it's trying to say that if you make the repairs within 6 months, you could build it back. But,
You say if it's a historical building, you ain't gonna be able to do it in 6 months. Why do we have it? Why is it such a short period of time?
Well, historic is separate. spelled
yeah,
right.
that one's separate.
They've got 2 years for historic.
Hazard regulation it started within 2 years of the date damage. It started.
Yeah, so they've got a lot longer, but.
From the old regulation, when y'all were going through it, was it, y'all had it like lined out, the old, and then to the new? Did y'all
Well, they did that early, in the earlier version, so then we just went through, and this, Aaron on this more recent.
Did
we
you all
went through.
did y'all extend anything based on the new climate of, what we living in now? It ain't like it was 5 years ago. I mean, just in general, in your thoughts.
I don't, well, Well, but some of the discussions around trees and all that stuff were based on new, kind of how things have evolved. I think, yeah, so I think I think so I think some of the landscaping probably more so than, anything else. But I think, yeah, I don't think
Permitting
Um,
appear to be reasonable.
we may need to make a, well, if you don't understand it, Tommy, then, I mean, I guess we need to make a note.
Yeah, my question is are we trying to say, it confuses me, because what I think it's trying to say is that if you start within 6 months, you could build it back non-conforming.
Right.
Because but it starts out saying it shall not be rebuilt, altered, or repaired, except in conformity with these regulations after sustaining damage or necessitating repair, comma, provided that any permitted reconstruction shall begin. And it's almost like there should be something else there, like unless
Yeah, which one are you reading now? Read
3.4.12, reconstructed, limited, in general.
Like it's missing something. It says if you do it within 6 months, it doesn't have to conform, but it isn't really worded that way.
Yeah, okay, so y'all seeing it the same way, okay. And I think if you had provided unless that any permitted reconstruction shall begin, you know, that would work. If
Yeah, 'cause
Just need some cutting and pasting.
Yep.
So it'll be, following accidental damage unless, reconstruction shall be, reconstruction began within 6 months from the time of the damage or notice of where, and shall be completed within 12 months after the issuance of a permit. So it needs to be cut and paste. So damage, and then put, unless,
where are you cutting and pasting?
it says, following accidental damage, damage, comma, unless reconstruction began within 6 months from the time of the damage or notice of where, and shall be completed within 12 months after the issuance of the building permit. And then you could put then otherwise
Right, otherwise
in conformity to, yes. So it could be
the last couple sentences.
retooled.
Otherwise, gotcha. Okay.
Otherwise, would have to be in conformity with these regulations after sustaining damage.
Then you just put the first sentence at the
necessitating
bottom.
repair.
Anything else in this chapter?
How did you catch that one? Just reading over it didn't hit you right?
Yes, sir. When we was talking about historic, I was looking for the other one.
You know, one thing,
happened?
general question I have yet to ask, and maybe we went over it, Tommy, is at some point, is this reviewed by an attorney to make sure that the changes that we made are, because they make sense to us, but doesn't mean that legally that they are appropriate. And so is there a review at some point to make sure that that is the case?
I don't know how far in depth the city attorney will look into it.
Okay,
You know, he's certainly welcome to, and
yeah,
that is an option for him. But I don't see him sitting down reading this word for word and going in that depth. Where we come from on the legal stuff is one, we ask him questions. And we have a couple times through the process. And two, the consultants, with case law and stuff that they know or that staff knows. Just like in the training that we had, she talked about several cases, and, you know, we bring that to the table as well to try to keep us on track.
Okay, so I guess, so then, if we're relying on the consultants for that perspective, we talked about kind of our timelines and then, our recommendation to council. At what step does it go back before the consultants to review the changes that we've made? in addition to
When we get finished, well, after tonight,
theirs? Okay,
what you change, I'll send to the consultants so we can start plugging them in the book.
okay,
And then after each meeting we have till we get to the end, I'll communicate any changes or corrections back to the consultant.
okay. I just don't know if there's maybe a need for there being a point where it's not just them putting the changes in, but looking at it again globally to make sure that all of the changes aren't contradictory, right?
And that's part of what we're doing here, is trying to flush out any contradictions.
Okay,
So we miss it, who gets to interpret it? When a person comes in with their damaged or burnout, and they say, well, I can do this. And you say, well, it doesn't mean that. Who
Well-
presses the interpretation?
The interpretation, I think it says in here, is the planning director.
Okay.
So that would, at the current time, that would be me. And if they don't like that answer, they can appeal that to the Board of Zoning Appeals. And if, however, the decision falls there, then it would go to the Court of Common Pleas, if somebody appealed from there.
But so we nip it in the bud because it's reasonable.
Right.
We make the decision, then knowing that it's ambiguous, can you make another change? Can you correct it after the fact, or it's forever that way until next review?
No, all it takes is, Planning Commission recommendation and 2 readings of City Council. You can change anything in here. This is, as I say, a living, breathing document. It should go, there should be changes periodically in here as we hit things, or that new technology, things come in that, you know, it changes. Okay. So we ready for chapter 4? I think I had a comment on chapter 4. You notice in here, in chapter 4, you look at the articles for the zoning districts, and they give you all the information on that page about your lot size and everything. One of the issues that we brought up that I don't think has been satisfactorily corrected is on 4.12.13, which is the R7. On page 24. Excuse me, 4.12.3. I typed that wrong. On page 24, the current, and you have it in the notes I said on the dais there. That second paragraph there underneath this note tells you a footnote that is under the current criteria table about R7 small lots. One of the things that we have is a lot of variance requests for townhomes. Townhomes are allowed in the R7, but there's not an exception to the minimum lot width. So you have to have a 40-foot wide lot, which doesn't work for townhomes. So we get repeated variances. And what I would like to do is include some kind of verbiage so that while we're including all of this other stuff to be allowed for the townhomes and in this district. If it's townhomes, you also exempt the lot width requirement.
What would you propose about with requirement?
If you were gonna put a number there,
Yeah.
I would say 24 feet.
Okay, so you talking about doing a footnote 3 exceptions for townhomes on lot width, is that of 24 feet? Is that how you're talking about addressing it?
And that would be a good way to do it.
Okay.
And that is my footnote for this chapter.
I have one that's only part of steering. When we get, and this in was it 10 or one of the much later chapters, and we were talking about measurings of heights of structures. We were talking about that for downtown. I don't think we referred back to how we've defined measuring of heights in 4.10.1. Remember, because we were just talking about trying to figure it out. And we were
Right.
asking about what the definition and where you measure heights from. And so we hadn't, but I don't, we can get to that. I'm sorry, because everybody else doesn't know what I'm talking about. You ready? Sorry. We were having a conversation on what max height should be for downtown.
Oh, for downtown?
Yeah, we were talking about, we were trying to figure out what was the correct way to measure and. Right, but we didn't refer back to this definition on measuring height for building in our discussion. That's on page 20, and we probably,
On page 20?
yeah, it's measuring height of buildings and or structures. Not that it's clear, but we didn't refer back to it, and so. I'm not an engineer, so that means nothing to me. But
We just don't know what grade plane means.
no, I don't know what in, yeah, no. No,
Grade
it loses.
plane? That's the level surface. Yeah.
So like for this building, that would be where the parking lot is?
Is that a civil engineering, yeah.
Yeah, but, so there's a part later where we talk about, what's appropriate building height. And so we were saying no higher than, but we didn't know where the height for
Height.
these, where we were starting from. Yeah.
I would take, I would, it would make sense, the highest level to the lowest level. And then average is sort of be, middle would be right. Well, the middle would be the average from that point to the highest roof.
Yeah, but then we were,
Coming to the,
right, because we were talking about what the, yeah. So for this whole downtown corridor, what's the maximum height, but we had not talked about how to define height, and we did not refer back.
Actually, I think you would, it says here, the average of the finished ground level adjoining the building at its exterior walls. So, means, yeah, you would get the average of all four sides.
That's not what it means.
Yeah, well, no, but just that, I guess at some point need to, when we get to that on the end, need to.
Okay.
So no greater than that, yeah. Huh?
Because North
No.
Which is why we were having that conversation. Okay.
Tommy, this escapes me. I'm gonna plead my ignorance. What's the significance of how we do R14, R10, R7, R5?
Lot size and uses.
Okay, yeah, I know, but why 14? Why wouldn't it be? Does 14 have a significance?
Yeah, R14, the minimum lot size is 14,000 square feet.
Okay, and then
R5 is the minimum lot size is 5,000 square feet.
okay, gotcha. Never knew that.
It's just one of those little quick and easy ways to know.
Any other municipalities?
That's
determine
quite
that?
common.
That's quite common. Okay.
You may also have like an R1A and an R1B. And then you got to go to the chart to see what kind of lot size. All right, what is R1A? Before you ever go to that, with this one, you know you're looking at 14,000 square feet, 5,000 square feet.
When this is digitized, does it have links? Like if I touched R14 and hyperlink to the
Yes.
page, it does? That's pretty slick.
One other question. I think, so the footnotes is, Tommy, would be the preferred way to do the exception, or would you prefer to have, like you just detailed, an R7A for townhouses? Okay,
Because then you'd be establishing a separate zoning district.
okay, that's making sure.
All right, what else we got in this one? Townhomes in an R7 is required to have a minimum lot width of 24 feet. Correct. If, yeah, district exceptions and notes. We ready to go to chapter 5? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you had a mixed use 3. Right. And if you go to page 31, 4.12.10, down at the bottom, district exceptions, the subcommittee grew out an area for a downtown mixed-use District 3. Well, the consultant, instead of making another line on the chart, another use, doing all of that, because all of the uses pretty much were the same, criteria was the same except for the building height. And so he laid this out, bounded by the streets that you wanted, or by the subcommittee said, and what I was told was they didn't want it, they wanted it the same height as the buildings that's down there. No higher than what was there. And I pulled some plans, and maximum height was 70 feet. And that's where the 70 feet came from. If you want to change that or lower that, and I don't remember if it was the Crown Plaza or if it was the clubhouse that I got the measurement from. I think it might have been the clubhouse.
We thought it was a clubhouse, but given how this is the average from ground, I don't know, because that it's probably a lower, slightly lower elevation.
Well,
I don't know, because they got that parking thing.
and to be honest with you, I didn't measure it like the definition in the book measures it. I pulled the building plans
Okay,
and measured it from the building plans.
okay,
I was not going to, I'm not going to say I'm not going to, but I would prefer not to go to the top of the building and drop a tape measure.
oh, no, we would prefer that you not do that as well.
We'll requisition you one of those laser things.
Does that handle it for the downtown mixed use 3, so to speak? And when we get to the use, the only change in the uses was you could have a ghost kitchen above the first floor. And what that will do is allow ghost kitchens above the first floor. When we get to use table. Ghost kitchen above the first floor in downtown mixed use 2. A ghost kitchen. Well, you want the definition? A ghost kitchen, look at that. I got good on this one.
First flip, nice job.
A facility used for meal preparation for off-site consumption that has a dependence on on-demand food couriers and not general retail services. Correct. Or, yeah.
At the Crown Plaza, they don't have a full kitchen. They have like for the bar. They run your food off.
That,
Yeah, for
right.
those vendors in South Carolina, DHEC, you have to have a kitchen site, home base, or a commercial kitchen to bring your truck in. That's some South Carolina DHEC stuff.
And basically, the reason you don't want it on the first floor is it's not going to generate any foot traffic or on-site retail sales. And so you would eat up all of your down first floor traffic generation or pedestrian traffic with non-pedestrian uses. Anything else in chapter 4? Chapter 5. This is the nuts and bolts of use, the use tables, uses and use conditions. Now, one of the things that we are doing here is we're doing a conditional use will be entirely different in this book than it is now. A conditional use now has to come be either before the planning commission or the planning director for a conditional use hearing. In the revised book, a conditional use has a list of items that it has to comply with. And as long as they comply with those items, they're allowed. So there's no public hearing required. It's either yes, you've got it, or no, you don't. And Mr. Key, looking through the book here, you can see the blue highlights. If you on the digital, if you clicked on that, it would take you to the page with fuels retail, or it would take you to where it's talking about that particular use in the book.
What's a good example of conditional use? Give me.
Well, like right now, we have a conditional use scheduled for February the 1st. A lady wants to have a licensed daycare in her home. In South Carolina, you have a home-based daycare where you can keep no more than 6 children in your home. Regular home, and she has to get the zoning approved so that she can get her DHEC or DSS license. So we have to have this hearing. But under conditional use, and there is, I can't do as good on this one flipping to the page, but they would have, recreation area, different, a fence around the play area, no play area in the front yard, has to keep the traditional home look something to that effect, so that it helps ensure that the character of the neighborhood isn't disturbed, but that this use, which pretty much would fit into a neighborhood most of the time.
In
Would-
most,
would
yeah,
work.
in most neighborhoods, certain things are, cannot be prohibited as a non-conditional use. Like, was it a veteran living in the house as a business? You can't have that. I'm just throwing that out.
There's some state law that requires certain type group homes to be treated as single-family residential.
Right. And so it does not matter what we have here, it is allowable.
Our book would be compatible with state law in those type things. But if the law changed after the book is adopted to allow, then we would go with the state law.
So in my neighborhood, we have, a lady has a daycare. A lot of cars, so is, so I would assume that it's allowable for her to keep kids. Not a daycare, but it means she keeps children. So that's allowable.
In the current ordinance, it's a conditional use, which is allowable after a conditional use hearing and approval.
So if I wanted to raise some sand,
We would go back and look and see if she had how long it had been, how long it had been in effect, and did she need a conditional use permit to establish the business there, or was it grandfathered in previously? And then if it was required to have the conditional use permit, did she get a conditional use permit? And if she is licensed by DSS, they're pretty strict about making sure they comply with the local zoning.
and the number of children,
Yes, sir.
square footage of the house.
Okay, anything else in chapter 5? We did. Mhm. I think it says here, and I think this is where he added this. Thereafter, except for those associated with public or nonprofit special events. So, that- right.
Public.
We would look at that as being exempt. We can get, you can argue it however you want to argue it both ways, but it's exempt. Let's move, yeah. Anything else in chapter 5? Okay, Dr. Crawford, it's now, I got 7 till 7. Before we go into the next chapter, do we want to take a break for the regular meeting?
Yeah, so we'll give
Kinda.
right a couple minutes and then we'll come back.
Let everybody stretch their legs.
Yeah, but the regular meeting shouldn't take us more than 10 minutes.
Excuse me, ma'am?
during the regular meeting.
Waiting.
Yeah, I got 1 minute.
Stopped at 6.
We got regular meeting at 7 until we can elect, approval of minutes, and then just election of officers. Do you have to stop and start a new stream on the? Okay. Okay. So, good evening. It is 7 o'clock in case anyone is joining us in Facebook land, as we begin the January 18th regular meeting of the North Augusta Planning Commission. And so we're going to give Ms. Paradise a moment, I think, to get the screens switched over from our study session. I guess while he's doing that, we can go ahead and do roll call. So Commissioner Key.
Timothy Key.
Rhett Harbison.
Bob Bigger.
Jesse Elliott.
And I am your chair, Christine Crawford. All right, so we have the agenda on the screen. All right, so with the minutes from November 22nd, did anyone see any edits or changes? If not, then I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
All those in favor of the approval of the minutes, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Thank you. All right, Mr. Paradise, could you please confirm the agenda? Are there any additions or changes? All right. Being none, the only matter of business for this meeting is the election of officers for this year, actually. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting it's 2023. So the offices are chair and vice chair, and we typically entertain any nominations, including self-nominations from the commissioners to serve in either capacity. And usually there's some discussion, but I don't know. It's gonna be a discussion, because y'all all looking. Everybody saying it.
We have to line it up for a motion. We can motion, or we have to have discussion.
No, you can line it up for a in previous years, we've had discussion, but
I'll make a motion for Chair, Dr. Christine Crawford.
I'll accept the nomination. Are there any other nominations?
I say we nominate Mr. Timothy Key.
Vice Chair.
Vice Chair.
Well, no, we got to vote the first one. So, all right, so.
My bad, I jumped on that.
Yeah, he jumped on out there to get that done as well. So, having been first and second, any other nominations for chair? Okay, there being none, we'll call for a vote for Christine Crawford, myself as chair. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Thank you. It's been my pleasure. All right, for vice chair, is there anyone who is interested in serving as vice chair?
Well, I don't have a sneak attack now, so he's had time to think about it.
No, no, I would love to, but, my tenure is slowly catching up with me. Yeah, so it wouldn't, for that reason. But I would, other than that.
All right, is there anyone else who is interested in serving as vice chair? Commissioner Key has No, that one I know. Is that
That's a good idea.
You throw that one in?
That's a good idea.
Mr. Carter typically has concerns around his travel schedule, and so that is usually his in the past. Is that a correct assessment?
Yeah, three times a year to 4 times a
So,
year. Work schedule.
yeah. So for work travel, we tended to not to serve in that capacity.
Gentlemen?
So, Mr. Key, would you maybe share what your responsibilities have been as vice chair thus far? So that
Say what now?
could you share what your responsibilities have been as vice chair? They have not been.
It's been, you've been knocking it out of the park, so you hadn't been absent. But I don't, it's not, your job is hard. I say hard because it's like a part-time job. It's getting ready for the meetings, it's getting versed up with staff. So that makes it difficult. But as vice chairman, you're gonna be pinch hitting. And so Doc always communicates well if she's not going to be available. So they give you an opportunity to brief up. So it's just a briefing. Whereas as a general commissioner, you can do a quick study and catch on. But it's really not bad. In your Robert's Rule of Order, just watch YouTube like you do when you fix your car. And you'll have at it. And I'm always of the opinion, in my 64 years, if you're reticent in doing something, I don't mind embarrassing it lasts only for a moment. and you got staff, Mr. Paradise, to keep you on target. So come on in, one of you guys. The water is fine.
Yeah, it's not. If you all are interested, it's not a heavy.
In my experience, I've been here for a few months longer than me. So,
Hey, that's more serious than us.
yeah.
Well, but seriously, let me also say this. I think so. It's mainly to serve if I'm absent, but I think that but for example, Red has to recuse himself because he works for a firm that comes before us fairly often, right? So that may make serving as vice chair slightly more complicated. No, so just of the things to no, but just of things to think about as you decide whether or not you're interested in serving in a capacity is that also comes into, could be a complicating factor. Yeah, please.
Excuse me. Yep. Staff prepares the agenda items. I might reach out to Dr. Crawford, which if whoever was the vice chair, if she wasn't here, I'd be doing this with you. Is there something we need to have on a work session? Is there that type thing? Then we come in the day of the meeting. I usually call her. Yes, you'd be getting calls from me, and reach out. Is there anything that I need to clarify? Any questions you have? Anything I've messed up? And get the path forward for the meeting that evening, and we discuss that. And then she comes and she runs the meeting, and cuts the people off when they talk too long, keeps people respectful, and kind of runs the show and does a good job at it. Keeps us on task and on point. And so as far as the vice chair, that's the kind of interaction you'd have with staff. And as vice chair, whenever you get into the planning decisions, that's more broad base for the entire commission. There may be questions sometimes, should this be on the agenda or that be on the agenda, that I would run through the chair. But that's kind of, the way it rolls, so to speak. And correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Crawford.
No, I think that was perfect. Thank you. And I think, but it's also, it's more, again, when I'm going to be absent. So it's not trying to, because a lot of the conversations that he and I may have may become before even the agenda is set. But you would know, I mean, if it was going to be a difficult meeting, you would know, okay, it's going to be a busy meeting. You would know all of those things before. And that also would give you an opportunity, as vice chair, to know what applications may be coming before us in case there is an issue for recusal. So not that you shouldn't serve that, but I just wanted to make sure that everybody was that piece of it.
And even at a difficult meeting that you know is going to have quite a few of the citizens to discuss it. In the old days, we didn't have as many study sessions, and so I couldn't call you guys and bounce off the ideas without it being out of order. And if talking to more than one person, even though it's in a group, then you're creating a quorum. And so we would be pretty much trying to make a decision unless we came in with Mr. Paradise a day or so early. He just briefed us on everything and what he thought. But the study session, if it's going to be a difficult meeting, he'll know in advance, and you'll get a chance to kind of pound through it and do it. So it's not bad.
And I have to add that staff is there for any application, and any planning commission member that may have difficulty with a particular application to sit down and go through the details prior to the meeting, get a better understanding.
In a perfect world, we would be paid and have staff and could really get into the meat of things and go visit the sites and do all this stuff but all of us limited with time. So we're doing the best that we can do with the information that we have. So we have what we have.
And so let me also say, this meeting, last couple meetings have been far more what is typical than we've had one or two that have been exceptional. So don't let that scare you as well. That is, those were atypical.
And if we are expecting an atypical meeting, and the chair or the vice chair, we could discuss it. And if you wanted security, public safety here, we could make those arrangements, I'm sure.
Yeah, no. Yeah, now, so that's the current expectation. My grandma 107. Now, so the same concern would have been the case from the moment so that is not.
How's your health? How are you doing?
So, mine is probably a better question than hers. So certainly, and I think that if that for some unforeseen reason, because so there's no plan for me to, but it's certainly in the next year. But if for something happened, then having heard that, then we know that maybe at that point we could maybe elect somebody to serve as acting chair for the remaining year, given that. There are ways around that. So I think having said that concern, we all understand and appreciate that, but I think there are ways to deal with that. And I think, you know.
Dr. Crawford, if what I understand, what way
Can
I'm
we-
hearing it is, you know, if something were to happen and you had to step
Yeah.
away, then it's not like the federal government where the vice president would assume the responsibilities. There'd be an election for the chair again.
If I was gone, yeah,
If you was
to
gone.
sleep. I think that's
But
correct.
yeah.
Yes.
But we can
Sure.
check to make sure that that is correct.
We'll check after we. I nominate Mr. Bob Bigger.
Second.
Now, are you okay? Because if you, okay.
Look before you cross the street.
Do we have a vote?
All right, so any other nominations for vice chair? Okay, there being none, all those in favor of Mr. Bob Bigger serving as vice chair, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, thank you, congratulations. All right. All right, staff report, Mr. Paradise.
Staff report. We're continuing to work on the development code. The George Avenue traffic study's continuing as well. We have an arts meeting tomorrow, arts policy meeting, the Augusta Regional Transportation Study for the MPO, and, you know, working through that. We're continuing to see the developments come in. We are seeing revisions of existing developments that was in the pipeline, and we are seeing some new developments trickle in.
Well, as always, we appreciate all that you all do in the office, and thank you for all of the citizens of North Augusta for your hard work. All right. There's nothing else, then this adjourns. Do I have a motion to adjourn our regular meeting for Wednesday, January 18th?